All right. Hello. Welcome. DevOpsCeption, managing Azure DevOps using PowerShell and Azure DevOps is what we're going to talk about today. First of all, huge thanks to our sponsors. They're doing awesome jobs. Without them, we wouldn't be here. Go to their booths, steal their giveaways, and buy their products. My name is Björn Sundling. I spend my days on the internet, on GitHub and Mastodon, and you can also find me on bjompen.com. Mainly, if you find Bjompen anywhere, that's probably me. On the outernet, I do consultancy for a company called Advania back home in Sweden. I am an MVP, an MCT, I have a lot of certifications and other cool stuff, but most of all, I am a DevOps and a PowerShell lover. And I do enjoy solving issues, doing puzzles, and I do enjoy Azure DevOps. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I'm kind of really bad at jigsaw puzzles, which is what we're going to do today. I mostly look like this when I try to do them, but it is what it is, you know. But I do have good friends, even here in the audience, that will help me out today. So I say welcome to Ben and Justin. Before we get going, a bit of prep work, because I'm a bad person. We're just going to do creating some files like this, and we're going to add some output, and we're going to do some Git stuff, and hopefully the internet won't break. Come on. This is always an adventure. Pray to the demo gods. Thank you. Create a pull request. There we go. Thank you. Let's go back to this one. So, like I said, we're going to do a puzzle today. And we're going to start with the first piece, something that's been around forever, Azure DevOps and the API. It's been around for a long, long time. It's a well-documented and well-based API. It can do all kinds of fancy stuff. And it even comes with like good examples and stuff. So we can, let's start over here. So we can do stuff like this. And again, praying to the internet gods. And we can see there's quite a short list of APIs that's supported. There's a lot of stuff you can do here. And this is only one of the base entries. So there's a lot of stuff, and it's well documented as well. So if we look at the Learn documents, they have a lot of references about just about every supported endpoint. We can even go and look at, let's do Git and do this one. So we can do API calls, and we have our examples even in some cases, and where examples don't exist, we even have stuff like this, because it's been around forever. There's a lot of blog posts and examples, and yes, I'm an egotistical bastard, so I use my own code as an example. But there's a lot of good stuff out there in this API, and it works really well. And like I said, we work a lot with this in our company. So quite some time ago, we realized that we did something like this. So this is basically calling the API to get all the projects in my organization. And we did this regularly, like you do, every day, every work, every customer, every whatever we did. We used the same commands and do the same thing over and over again. So, of course, we're PowerShell nerds. It's what we do. We wrap this in a module. And so about 2 years ago, I think it was, or maybe even 3, we released the first iteration of a module called ADOps. And this one, so instead of having to manually input personal access tokens and do all this, we simply wrapped it all in an API module called ADOps, and we instead now can do like this, and it creates a connection to our Azure DevOps. And instead of using the API, we can just do this, and it will result in the same thing. It gets the project. Works really well, works really fancy. And so we had our first piece of this puzzle. Come on, bouncy thing. There you go. An API. Now, like I said, I'm not very good at puzzles, so, you know, thank you, Ben and Justin. Okay. But we still have some missing pieces. Like, this was just the first step of our puzzle. We still have a lot of missing stuff going on. personal access tokens are bad for you. You do not want to use personal access tokens. They are inherently easy to leak. They are like often granted way too much access to stuff. And they have are hard to retract. If you leak them, they can't be really pulled back unless you know. There's the life cycle process of a personal access token is generally bad. So, piece number 2 came into place. We wanted to support OAuth instead, which is, if not the best protocol, it's at least a much better protocol because it has shorter-lived tokens. It's authenticated in Azure, so you can have MFAs and all the fancy stuff and like all kinds of good stuff. But it's also kind of hard. And I tried to implement this a number of times, and I failed, and I failed, and I failed. I mean, that looks kind of simple, but it includes creating apps, and it includes like getting your grant tokens back. And there are at least 2 people in this audience here. So you have Ben and Emmanuel, who has done sessions on this here. So if you have any questions on how this works, ask them. But Emmanuel, about a year ago, you gave a presentation. He gave a presentation here at PSConf on a new module called azauth. That's absolutely mind-blowing. It's so good. And so instead of doing personal access tokens, we decided to go implement Emmanuel's module. And this module basically let us do this. So we have to still set up stuff like, there we go. Stuff like a resource ID. Which resource do we want access to? And this is what's commonly known as a well-known ID. They are out there somewhere. Those who know. You have to grant it a scope. Which scope does the OAuth token, should the OAuth token be valid through, and so on and so forth. But instead of getting the old style personal access token, now we get kind of the standard Azure login. So it looks just like we log in when we log in our Azure environment, and we can still use the token as a bearer token. Like I said, I am very bad at this. So if you have any questions on how it works in the background, ask someone else. But anyhow, this module was released, and Emmanuel was so incredibly friendly to set this up so we could support it. So now, in about a year ago, we released version 2 of the ADOPS module. Let me just do this so we can see what it says. And now, instead of doing adding your personal access tokens and doing connect this way and having to store away the personal access tokens, we simply could do this. Thank you. And if we go to this one, well, the function works exactly the same, but without personal access tokens this time, which is way better, way more secure. And suddenly we felt quite comfortable using this and even implementing it at customers' places, and it was working really well. And so, well, we had our second piece of our puzzle. But, yeah. Thank you, Ben and Justin. Now there are still issues. We still lacked a couple of pieces of the puzzle of it all to come together, because the problem with this is that everything's still personal. Like if I log in and I create something, it will say Björn created this. If I create a project, it will say this is Björn's project. Not necessarily what I want, especially because I don't really want the access to everything. It shouldn't be mine. And so we have this fancy thing called managed identities. And in March last year, Azure DevOps added the functionality to import managed identities into Azure DevOps to use just as you would use any other identity. And of course, we have something to look at as well. Yeah. Like always, brilliant posts and brilliant documentation. There's a blog post somewhere on how this works, but the result of this... wrong link. It's hard to do with this. Everyone says it's so hard because the font is so big, and it's true. So we can import managed identities like that one or that one. And if you're not familiar with a managed identity, this is basically the concept in Azure of granting an identity to a resource. So if you have your self-hosted VM runner or your VM scale set, preferably, you can simply switch this one on, and suddenly you have a user that is a machine. And now instead of me having to log in, the pipeline can actually log in using that managed identity and do stuff in Azure DevOps. Really cool. So how do we implement this? It's really hard. We want it, but it's really hard. Because Emmanuel's module is fantastic, it was this hard. Literally already included because it's the same authentication protocol, and it's like, it was a really good step. So suddenly it was like, yeah, I'm starting to feel like this is going somewhere. Now, we still have stuff like this. We need service connections because, yeah, service connections scale our images up and down and make sure that stuff works. And service connections in Azure DevOps are identities. They are. But we're getting somewhere. Our little puzzle is moving ahead slowly but securely. And we have our third piece of it, managed identities. So yeah, we had the third piece. And it worked. It works really well. We can scale up our scale sets and we can run and we can do stuff. But of course, there's always missing pieces. Like I said, we still have service connections. I don't like service connections. They are an identity. They need to be cycled and life-cycled like an identity. And there's other stuff coming with it. And also, I still need to manage my host. So, for example, since we run PowerShell in our pipelines, we are PowerShell people, at least I do. And since we do, I needed to either set up an image builder that built my images with PowerShell or everything, or have a pipeline that's, whenever it started by installing PowerShell, which added like a couple of minutes to every run, and you have to do the internet connection and so on and so forth. There's stuff going on. More resources, more job for ops. Until now. And this, hold on to your horses, is something I'm incredibly happy to talk about. Because this is not even released yet. This is literally not out. It's in private preview. I'm so happy I'm allowed to talk about it. Managed DevOps tools should be released within the very close future for public preview. But this is a whole entirely new type of Azure DevOps runner. It basically means you can run public images internally. So you can do stuff like mount them to your internal network. Or, just run the Azure DevOps images, but as your own scale sets instead. Now, of course, we're going to look a bit at how it looks. I don't have that many demos because, well, basically there's not much to show. This is an entirely new type of resource that will show up in Azure. Looks like any other Azure resource. And it contains stuff like, networking. You can connect it to your network if the internet allows. Set up internal network and connect to it, or use your own proxy servers or firewalls or whatever. We have our managed identities, if the internet allows. So we can use these to authenticate and import just as we could. And if you remember the identities I have imported, this is actually one of them. Coolest of all is this. If the internet allows, we can select, I hope it's viewable. If not, I can't zoom, so if not, then sorry. Sorry? There we go. I tried this one. Okay, so most interestingly, you can pick and select your image galleries or images. So we can select and run Azure Pipelines images, which most commonly only used in Azure, but they are going to be run in your terminal. We can also do the normal, like Windows and Ubuntu machines. And of course, if you have your own compute gallery, that's not spoiled, so we can use those as well. And this means, when you create this resource, it also creates this. Nope, sorry, don't look at the red ones. Nope, go back. Sorry, damn it, Link. There we go. It also creates this one, the MDP pool, agent pool. And if you have good sight, you may notice that the icon is actually the same as the Azure pipeline. This is because it's basically the same stuff, but with more features. This is coming quite soon. Anyhow, this manage DevOps pools showed up. And suddenly, I found the fourth missing piece. And so, we had it. We put our puzzle together. We have our API. We can authenticate with it. We can use managed identities, so I don't have to be the owner of everything. And we have the managed DevOps pools that allows me to just ignore the whole managing images and still connect them to my internal network and get my managed identities and so on. Or if we put it another way, in Azure DevOps, I can start a pipeline running on an MDP pool that logs in using a managed identity and uses OAuth to connect back to Azure DevOps. And by now, you may sort of realize where this is going. But there's one sort of thing there. I've heard that those who do puzzles like to glue their stuff together. Yeah, so it doesn't fall apart. So we need to glue all this together. But we have a lot of good first-class citizens in PowerShell that can do this. We have Jason, of course. We have Jason as a first-class citizen that can do stuff like this. So if you have a JSON table, we can just run it, and we can do convert from hash table or convert from JSON as hash table, and we can index it and see what goes on. And we can go all the way through it, or we can watch it live as well. So we can have a JSON that looks something like this. And scan. Come on. Fuck. That's good enough. So we can have a JSON that looks like this, and we can use this to store our configurations in. And when it comes to managing stuff, we have Git. It's included in everything and everywhere when it comes to DevOps runners because, we can't do DevOps runners without Git. And Git can do some really fancy stuff like this. We're going to do this first. Clear. Now we're going to go and do this. And it can show us exactly which files has been changed since last time we did a change. Or, if we put it live, don't look at my code because this is ugly. Nope. This is what we're going to do. When we do this in a pipeline, we have to do some additional magic because, folders and paths and depending on hosted runners and images and so on. But we can still use this command to just get, what did change since last time and see what should we do with this. And so I spent a good lot of time to tie all of this together. And the end result is the AZDM, the Azure DevOps Manager or the Azure DevOps Dungeon Master. I haven't really decided on which one it should be, but this is a framework or basically PowerShell and a lot of templates and modules and helpers and other stuff going on that allows you to do stuff. Come on. Do stuff like this. We have in Azure DevOps, the basic principle of this toolkit is that Azure DevOps can be viewed as a file system with configuration items. We have a file tree. Each of these has the properties of what settings should be included and implemented and so on. And so I started to replicate this as a folder structure with settings. So we have a baseline configuration that says every project in my organization should look like this. This is the standard pipeline. This is the standard repo. This is whatever. And we can override it. If we go do something like this, okay, this project, well, it should have a description, and instead of the basic process type, we should use Scrum. And let's add myself as project administrator because I'm awesome. YAML paths, we can set up like default pipelines and stuff. Again, we can override it even deeper and say that, you know what, we have a couple of pipelines in here. This one should have this setting instead. It should look like this. Couple of templating features, so we can say that every time we set this up, should create a folder the pipeline should have the correct name after your folders or after your projects and so on. And we can redirect stuff and so on and so forth. The entire structure is based very, very much on that of AZOps, if anyone is familiar with it. And this one also has a couple of pipelines in it. 2 of them. A push pipeline and a validate pipeline. Push pipeline does pretty much exactly what it says. It pushes stuff and actually updates your repo. So whenever you create a new project, so whenever you create a new project or a new repo in a project or whatever, it will do that. Good enough. And this is where we pray to the demo gods. The first thing I did was add a few files. So we actually created a folder, and I added it, and I pushed it. There are like 3 configuration files. And if I were to merge this now, or when I am to merge this now, well, we have a project called psconf.eu rocks. It should be created, but it isn't. That one will have 2 pipelines, or 1 pipeline. It's not sorted, sorry. Pipeline, it will have a couple of artifacts, a couple of repos, a lot of good stuff going on. So we will get the feedback, like if you approve this, what will happen? What will you do? Let's just do this. Now, exactly. There is a couple of things, like I said, Git can do history. It's what it's made for. But there are a couple of things we need to figure out. So we can only allow squash commits simply because otherwise the whole look which files have changed doesn't really work. And so what will happen now, hopefully, if everything and God's willing and the demo gods are kind to me, it will start our new pipeline. And the reason I started this before is because it needs to spin everything up. And if everything works out, we should create a new project in my organization with all these settings, all these pipelines pre-configured, and everything in place. So, right now, this framework only supports VM scale sets because, well, we haven't gotten to the point of releasing the other stuff yet, but it's on its way. I have plans to update this to support MDP pools as soon as possible, and also a lot of other plans. So while this is running, let's just go here instead. Because this is open, you can get it right now. It's available on github.com/AZDops/AZDM. Someone had already stolen the AZOps moniker or name. So we have everything here. It's from how to structure your files and folders to documentation on come on, internet. On how the module works, the design principles. We have the layout and what's allowed in every single JSON template. Because it's not fully supported yet, like I said. Basically, I did this and set up and created what I need. But since it's open source and since it's on GitHub, feel free to add, do whatever you want, take it in any direction you want. We also have a bit of setup accelerators, so we can run these and it will kind of create most of it. There are a couple of manual steps, but most of it is creatable and you can just run this and it will work. Sorry. And it should contain, well, at least what's needed to get over the hurdle for now. It contains what I need to get over the hurdle as well. There's also quite a large to-do list. Like I said, I open sourced this, well, actually in April, I think it was. And officially, the version I picked was 0.1.0, mainly because I don't really, not all the steps I wanted are in there. There are a couple of things we still need to add, but hopefully we can get there. And all of this is based on me discovering the Azure DevOps API a long, long time ago and finding it useful. So like I said, all of this is available online. Just feel free to do whatever you want with it. And let's see if our pipeline is... No, damn it. Okay. Something with path exception. I have no idea. Never seen it before. Time to debug. Let's go see if it did this instead.
Do it live.
Yes. Where do we have it? There we have it. Well, it did create our REAP project. That's good. And it did create our repos. That's good. Yeah, of course, you have to be prepared for next year. I have to come back here and show you what happened to it. It was the pipelines. Oh, so apparently the path for the pipelines was wrong somewhere. May have made a slash or something in the wrong direction. I don't know. Let's see if this one's done. No, it actually didn't create this one. Oh, it break. Anyhow. It should have set up the rest as well. It can do the rest as well, but if you type everything right, so, yeah. Currently, it only supports creating. Not... well, actually, to a certain extent, we can update and change values. So if you want to change like the project description or set new tags or so on, that's absolutely doable. I opted out of supporting delete because delete is dangerous and should be someone's manual choice to delete a project because you're basically destroying a lot of work. Other than that, we'll kind of see where this goes. And like I said, feel free to contribute. Because the Azure DevOps Manager, I think it's really cool. Actually, I've spent quite a lot of time on it. I like it. And I know what you're saying right now. And yes, it is true. I put some DevOps in your DevOps so you can DevOps while you DevOps. And with that, questions? Go. Shoot.
Is the managed DevOps that we showed, is that at what stage? Is it preview?
It's in private still. Yeah. It was supposed to have, the question was about the managed DevOps pools, and it was supposed to have been released now, which is why I talked to the team and they said like, okay, you don't have to rewrite your entire session for this, which I absolutely love them for. But yeah, but there are some quirks to work out until they release it publicly or for public preview at least. Anyone else? No. Run home, give me pull request and get yourself 15 minutes extra break. Thank you.